How'd you get started in real estate, especially wholesaling?
Okay, so the biggest thing where I would just got super lucky is that my dad had heard about wholesaling. He was working as a realtor before, and he had heard about wholesaling about 3 months before I graduated. And he came on, he was doing some deals, and I've always been really tight with my dad. And he was like, "Yo, you got to check this out." I look into it and I'm like, dog, that looks like a scam. Hope it works out for you. I don't want to do that. Like, I got this sick job lined up over here, this commercial real estate job. I'm gonna make like 80K a year, dude. It's gonna be awesome. And he's like, no, dude, you don't see, like, you don't realize you can make that in a month. And I'm like, dude, come on, whatever. Now that job went away because of COVID. And now at that point, I had no other option. I'm like, all right, dad, let's try and make that 80K in a month. Let's see what's up. And obviously it didn't start like that. But basically,
Well, I want to ask, is your dad just like that? Did he always just have this random things where he's like, "Hey, son, let's do deals together, or let's do this business"?
Yeah, like he's done a lot of different things. He had a really large drywall company, and that's kind of what he was always doing growing up. He worked as a realtor, and he did the whole reason I had a bad taste in my mouth is because one summer I decided I didn't want to work at a gym anymore, and he was like, "Well, I'll pay for you to get your real estate license. You can come be a realtor." I was like, "All right, let's do it." I basically spent an entire summer cold calling people, not knowing what I was doing, and also had no confidence in myself because I was like 18, 19 years old. And I was like, nobody's going to trust me to sell their house, whatever. Basically worked this whole summer banging out cold calls every single day on a Mojo dialer. And that whole summer I made no money. I got one listing, piece of shit mobile home, listing it for $100,000, and it did end up selling. I ended up making like $1,000. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, no, I've had it. So after that, I had a bad taste in my mouth, So when my dad was reaching out to me, I'm like, are you telling me I'm gonna have to make some more cold calls and possibly not make any money at all? He's like, yeah. Oh Jesus, but I had no other option, right? I mean, all of my connections through my fraternity and everything like that was tapped because it was COVID, right? But I was like, okay, I got this girl. I got to make some money. I got to be able to pay for, flights to come out and see me. Like, we got to be able to make this happen. I got to be able to take her out to nice dinners. I started to look, and I did see, look, all these people I was seeing on social media, they had the watches I wanted. They were driving the cars I wanted. I was like, okay, there has to be something. And also, a lot of them were just like, I mean, I don't want to be like negative or come from a point of like negativity here, but I was like, dog, these people don't really seem that smart. I'm not the smartest guy in the world either, but if they can do it, what's stopping me? Got after it, right? And so basically every single day I was working off an old beer pong table. Like, those fold up plastic working off one of those, this laptop on Mojo again, just cold calling people, just cold calling. It was like pre-foreclosure data. Hey, would you be interested in getting a cash offer on your property? Would you be interested? And it took me 2 months of doing that every single day. And this is where it was really helpful that I had my girl, because that's what pushed me to be able to do this. After 2 weeks of 6 to 8 hours a day, cold calling on a triple line dialer, and you're like, I haven't made any progress. I don't have a single lead. There are times where you're like, holy shit, does this work? Am I wasting my time? Kept going. And then eventually 2 months later, met this guy. Can't remember his name. Let's just say Joe. He had these 3 properties. Well, it was 4 properties on one parcel in Ajo, Arizona. And then 3 of them were pretty much garbage. They were just like old drug dens, like terrible graffiti, drug paraphernalia everywhere. But one of them was like renovated, and he had a tenant in there. And he was like, yeah, dude, I really just want these gone. I was, you have an idea of how much? And he was like, $30,000. I started looking around. I was like, that one might be worth somewhere around 55, 60. So I said, okay, hopped in my car, drove to Ajo, walked to properties with him, had no idea what I was doing. And I brought the contract with me. And I was using just at that time, a Arizona Department of Realtor contract, like a standard real estate agreement. Anyway, we walk them, and I remember I was so scared, and I told him, I was like, well, do you think you could do 25,000? And he was like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And we go over to his house in Ajo, like his personal residence. He's in there, and he's literally like helping me fill out the purchase contract. He's like, no, you got to put like, whatever. We got it. I called up a friend who I'd met at a meetup. He was like, I mean, this guy had a sick car. I was like, he will probably know what to do here. And I was like, hey man, I got this deal. Can you help me sell it? He said, sure. He sold it. We each made $15,000. That check hit my account. I had never in my life had anywhere close to that kind of money. I immediately went to the Burberry store, bought myself a Burberry t-shirt, texted Meredith, my wife. I'm like, yo, when are you coming to Arizona? Like, we got to set something up, like absolutely. Well, look, I did, but the best thing I would tell myself is that first of all, I was addicted. I got that, and I was like, holy shit, okay, this works. We can do this again. However, I don't want to have to make all these cold calls anymore. I need to hire some people. I'd heard about virtual assistants. So I immediately hired 3 VAs, got like 40,000 records, and off to the races. Then after that, I had the VAs cold calling all day. I was only talking to people who were interested in selling. And then I found out that I actually really liked. I enjoyed the phone sales. I liked closing. It was like a game that I learned like to practice at. right? It reminded me a lot of when I was in high school, there was this game, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. You ever play that? So I remember when quick scoping, the first time I got quick scope, and I was like, what is that? And then I see, it's kind of people are doing it. And I'm like on YouTube learning how to do this. And I'm in like practice lobbies learning how to do it. And I realized, I was like, damn, if I put that same level of dedication into getting good at phone sales, dude, the sky's the limit. And that's what happened, right? I'm on YouTube. I'm studying tutorials. I'm watching other people do it, right? I'm watching live calls, seeing what kind of questions they ask. How do they react? What's their tonality look like? And I'm studying just different other general sales books and things like that. But I became obsessed for a little, right? Where it was so much fun for me. And I just treated it like a game. From there, we got VAs. Leads are coming in. I'm calling. I'm getting better at closing. Another thing that was happening at the time is like in 2020, a lot of these like TikTok people started popping up out of nowhere where all of a sudden they're mini celebrities and they're like living in sick houses in LA. They're driving Ferraris. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like there is something here to having a following on social media. And I was like, I got to start doing this, right? I got to put myself out there. I'd always been like really scared of it. Like, shoot, dude, people from high school are going to see this and like be like, what the hell is this, jerk off doing? Like, what's going on? But I was like, dude, I got to get past it. I got to do it because if it gets me into there, it'll all be worth it. And so I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And I started just sort of making videos, kind of like the other shit I'd seen. And it wasn't really me and I didn't really like it, whatever. But that got me enough to where I had 1,000 followers on TikTok and it allowed me to live stream. Basically, TikTok has a feature where you can go live. And I was sitting there and I said, okay, I'm going to go live and I'm just going to make my calls, just like I'm doing. So I'm sitting there on live and I start closing deals.